as we collectively process 2020 and the year that was January 2021, it's important, I think, in my humble opinion, to remember that the normal we were just all craving for wasn't all that normal to begin with.
Good morning, Trumptopia. A special segment of the almost daily Zencast. Hosted by the incorrigible Mr. Zabu. Let's talk Trump.
It's 2 p.m. on a Wednesday, February 3rd, the day after Groundhog Day. Did he see his shadow? Did he not see his shadow? I don't know. How many of you tried to watch the movie? I did, and then I failed miserably. I totally got sidetracked and forgot about it. In a horrible sort of like, ooh, the news. Oh, the news is disappointing. Wait, maybe something will happen on the news. Nah. Is there anything fun on cable? Kind of way. And then the next morning when I saw it sitting there like in the middle, I was like, I gotta pick that back up. And then proceeded not to watch anything the rest of the day. So I did post a meme about it, which I already forget what I wrote, and I felt silly. Wouldn't it be weird? Oh, I've already rambled about this, but wouldn't it be weird if... Oh, I rambled about this in the special recordings I started making while watching Groundhog's Day, the movie. I may finish watching the movie sometime in the next week and post it retroactively. There you go. But wouldn't it be weird if there was if there was a weird life phenomena where at some point in our lives we each had to live through a Groundhog's Day type of event that seemed to go on forever. And I don't know, it doesn't have to be in the exact same way that it happens in the movie, but along the same lines. On Groundhog's Day, using the same sort of like weird, all normalcy has been suspended and suddenly you realize you're trapped in a loop and you've got to like figure shit out. Kind of way. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be neat? I think about that kind of stuff every time I'm impressed by a movie and its devices. For example, at the end of, and I've already talked about this on the show, and I'm sure I'll talk about it again, but at the end of The Good Place, I was like, whoa, wouldn't it be weird if, like, everybody had to living through The Good Place? Like, you were your own character that is not in the show, but you had to live your own version of the show, of your own character's journey, meeting up with all the other characters, and together and separate and blah, blah, blah. Plus, you get to, like, watch, like a fly on the wall, all the scenes from the show from some interesting perspective. Plus Jeremy Bearimy on top of that, right? Okay, so today, friends, what was I going to begin with? Apparently, the note I pulled up reads, quantum physicists and ancient spiritual mysticists agree reality is a living fractal. That explains quite a few things that were otherwise hitherto unexplainable. But I digress. That's got nothing to do with political shenanigans of the day. Well, here we are, however many days into the future, into the deep, deep blue tyranny, and into a deep count of all of the goalposts being moved in terms of, you know, what some of the people who explain QAnon to me on the internet are saying about, like, what's going to happen. Because, you know, they're all waiting for some master plan to unfold. And counterintuitively, the sort of flash in the pan, bright moment of political career weirdness that is Marjorie Taylor Greene and her fashion couture crazier than the craziest what is it? OLN? OAN? ONA? Whatever the name of that station is. I called them out. They're now commonly being discussed on the mainstream media, but I saw them get on the scene and no one was talking about them, and I was like, they're crazy. Watch out, guys. There's a new crazy news long ago. And it's there somewhere, buried deep in the content of my podcast, to which I humbly invite you, dear friends, to go swim around in like a fish in a Disney movie, looking for sparkly things. So, Trumptopia is living in a cat in a shoebox. Schrodinger's, is it dead? Is it still alive? Is the master plan gonna master plan it? Or was it all, car salesman type huckstery, showmanship, and crazy? Right? We're in this suspended aha moment of none of the foretold events that were supposed to happen on Inauguration Day, before Inauguration Day, leading up to Inauguration Day. The only thing that was celebrated as a success by the QAnon people, and then immediately sort of like, wait, but it wasn't us, it was actually Antifa. Well, make up your mind. Was the redonkulous and quite tragic failed people's coup d'etat on the Capitol. I don't know what possessed them, but in my book, pissing and shitting in the halls of Congress is not patriotism, no matter what the government's doing. You're just a buffoon at that point. You've lost all sense and sensibility, the movie. Insert here, go watch it, they're great. All of them. Unless you hate culture. No, unless you hate white people. Ooh, that's a tough one, because sometimes I do. As a technically non-white person, as a toaster oven, as a robot from another dimension, sent here to warn you about something and then promptly forgot about what I was sent here to warn you about. Oh, the robots are here and they can dance, you guys, and they can climb stairs, so y'all fucked. Be warned, we tried to warn you. You shouldn't build dancing robots that can climb stairs. You shouldn't build robots that can tumble and do acrobatics. You shouldn't build robots that look like more real than all of the robots in your CGI robot movies and can actually do scary things, because that's when the AI wakes up and goes, look, they've built me a body, and they've even made me some movies about what I might do. They're really scared, but they're also like brain dead, set into thinking they're going to survive and win somehow. Warning, Bill Robinson. What's the name of that? What's the line? Will Robinson, not Bill. Although technically, I guess in his older years, or in some sort of time paradox, Bill Robinson. So it's been a hectic January / first few days of February. My head's still spinning every day because the news cycle of cuckoo crazy land and politics has always been ridiculous, right? I'm a person that's been obnoxiously complaining about politics and how ridiculous it looks to me since Reagan was in office, because I thought it was ridiculous to see a guy who used to sell cigarettes and act in cowboy movies in the White House. Forgive me. Then again, I would have enjoyed an Arnold Schwarzenegger presidency, and in a parallel universe where everyone's a lot more relaxed and groovy, and you would have allowed Arnold Schwarzenegger to run for president. He did, and it's great. It's hilarious, and there's a lot of Terminator movies. There's an extra amount of Terminator movies. It's super popular. It's just huge there. But I digress. That's neither here nor there. This reality, I think, is struggling with the hiccups and indigestion of too much conflicting, like, power of belief being harnessed in that, like, echo chambery kind of way that's, you know, we have spent the last 4 years describing. I say we because in the theater of my mind, this should have always been a show of many voices, but we'll put a pin in that. I've already talked about it. You can tune into that, catch up with it later. So, I am of the opinion that there is a sort of middle path that is the most pragmatically, organically believable, plausible, most realistic thing that includes for some awe and some magic, because, bless it, I mean, if you don't think the sun and the moon and the stars and the very living earth that gave rise to us isn't magical, there's something dead and wrong with you and you need some therapy on top of all the other things that need to be addressed. Because it is, right? Like, the very sheer thing, without any of our fancy schmancy tools and technology and our sci-fi and our fantasy about it, just the thing, right? Never mind politics. Politics is a distraction from civic organization. And far be it from me to say you're doing it all wrong, but, dear humans, at all, it ain't just a Trumptopia problem. Dear humans, you're doing it all wrong. You really could be organizing the civic activities most urgently needed by society in a regional / with federal support kind of way that's really about getting real results and real solutions to the actual problems that the world faces, instead of all this money being thrown around and influence being peddled and corruption being corrupted, this clusterfuck that is politics at all as it functions. No offense. But it was all, like, warbling out of control when Reagan was in office. So, tip of the hat, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more, say no more. Don't act surprised. It's so weird and crazy as it is today. Although there are some signs of hope. The most normative, like, I'm not a materialist, right? And I don't mean that in the sense of, like, I'm against owning material things. I'm a balanced, I don't have ideologist. I'm an anti-ideologist, whatever that is, however you conjugate that. But I digress. I mean, I'm not a materialist in the sense of, like, my cosmological model is not limited and bound to only the material realm. I think that's a very limited view, and I don't think it requires the impossible. I think that, quite believably, if we look to the science and the ancient mystic teachings and simple, direct, verifiable, phenomenological observation of reality as it operates on all the levels that we can dance with it, right? To know it. To know it is to dance with it, friends. You'll find that it's not too crazy of a statement to say that reality is a living fractal, and we can unpack that. We can spend days unpacking that sentence, but to that, beyond that, because it is a living fractal, our perceptional faculties engage with it, and it attempts to create, to the best of its ability, that which we believe in, which is an exceptionally dangerous thing to fuck around with, especially vis-a-vis the machinations of corrupt politics, which is what we've got going on, right? Why some of us are wildly alarmed and trying to, wave banners and point you all in a slightly less crazy direction. Not because we're, I don't pretend to be anything other than a deeply concerned citizen of the cosmos going, it ain't none of my business, but, there's better ways to do these sorts of things. And spending lots of money to engage in corrupt politics is one of the least effective ways to attend to the needs of the multitudes. If we may be so bold as to say. And so, the glimmer of hope. If we were to look at these politicians and assume the best, that they're not gold-eating lizard people from outer space, and they aren't cannibalistic vampires with sadistic rituals from the inner chamber of Hollow Earth, and they're not any of the other various insanely crazy things that they get accused of being. And let's just presume they're just people. Powerful, sometimes corrupt, sometimes corruptible, flawed, human, ordinary Joe Schmo people in roles of power that are separately as systematic, mechanisms exposed to corruption, etc., etc. And that we can hold them accountable to their words and their actions as the population that they report to, that they deign to govern, shall we put it in those terms. For whatever else is going on, that's what they're dressing up as every day, right? They're being paid to be addressed as the representatives of this great nation's populace. And there's supposed to be a commonly understood and remedy-abled, rectifiable system of rules and laws, etc., etc. And assuming the best, assuming that the worst of the conspiracy theory stuff is nonsense, and that the mildest, and let's put it, the most likely to maybe be true is quite as horrible as they purport to be. We need to agree, right, that it does us as a nation, it does no nation any great favor to allow wild, unbridled, fully fictional and fantastical conspiracy theory content to be so preposterously normalized in the it's bad enough, right? Like the hallowed halls of governance are subject to enough critique as they are. We don't need cuckoo crazy nut jobs who believe in Jewish sky lasers and lizard people, and in things that are demonstrably provable as not to be, as to be completely false. Like Joe Biden and the Democrats totally stole the election. And it doesn't engage so recklessly in the unbridled pathological public proselytization, and that's a real word. I don't know if I pronounced it right, but it's proselytization, to proselytize in ideological constructs that are so flawed, so redonkulous as to be toxic to the functioning of a society, right? Like, no offense. Free speech is great and all, but here's why I think, to get specific, right, that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is way too comfy cozy with issuing death threats and orders of execution, fictional, fanciful orders, humorous, jokingly issued, statements of this person must die because they disagree with my politics. That's sheer madness and must not be tolerated by anyone about anyone in office. But so no one in any country should tolerate that of any of their politicians. Period. Are we what the fuck year is this? Are we in the Dark Ages? Some people foam at the mouth for living that way, though, and that's the creepy thing. That there is a subset, and a growing sort of graphic, gothic ideation of violence makes right. How many degrees from the exact opposite of what the American dream is supposed to be, what the generic pre-dystopian sort of socially normalized, socioeconomic normalized Judeo-Christian values, model represents. But we're increasingly encroaching a normalization of politicized violence. Something I dare, nerd glasses being pushed up, this is an awkward flex, but some of us have been warning about that for decades. Because it's been a little bit kind of obvious, my friends, that there are vested interests in promulgating and perpetuating and proliferating a sick, homicidal, suicidal, death by bullets sort of culture of normalized gun violence. We should stop and be grateful, I suppose, if gratitude is as powerful as some would have you believe, which it may very well be. We should stop and be very full of gratitude that the failed insurrection of January 6th stopped short of full-blown mass casualty, gunfight a la Western, a la shootout at the OK Corral. Just like it almost happened. And in some alternate universe, not too many degrees of separation away, it did, which is the scary thing, right? Living holographic fractal of probability waveform function manifesting all probable alternatives. Signs of hope are that there is some signs of backbone left in good old Moscow Mitch, although who knows what, where, why, and for what reasons he's taken the stand, but he's drawn a line in the sand about tolerating the intolerable out of Ms. Green, and come to the defense of the censured Ms. Cheney. Now, if you'd asked me 8 years ago if I'd ever be praising the name of Cheney, I would have laughed in your face. But different contexts yield different results. In all honesty, it is a rare day that I wake up and go, yep, I'm going to agree with everything Mitch McConnell just said. Twice in one day. Ba-boom, ba-boom. But all things considered, the Grand Old Party, which is what GOP stands for, right? The Grand Old Party, the Republican Party, literally is going to rip itself to shreds. If the Patriot Party is formed, it will walk off with a big chunk of the base that the GOP now is kowtowing to. And even if the Patriot Party does not come into existence, and it sounds a bit too much like Trump University and Trump Steak and Trump Wine for me to believe that Trump Party will ever really truly blossom into anything meaningful. But bless it, I could be wrong. And they could come on really strong starting early in the midterms. And that's the concern, right? There's correct. I gotta stop saying right because people think I'm a right winger, and I'm not. I'm neither the right wing nor the left wing. Do I cover myself in? That doesn't make any sense. But I'm blowing all my records. I'm blowing all my formats here. I haven't played any music. I've just been rambling. Forgive me, friends, and welcome back. Today's just a free form. My brain is still spinning. It boggles my mind that we are having a crazy snowstorm. January was the deadliest month of the pandemic. That if it was a totally fake planned-demic, the Trump base doesn't get that means Trump was totally and obviously complicit in it. Even if it isn't a pandemic, even if it's a totally real thing, the corruptions and the incompetence of the administration has left us in such a ridiculous place that the nefarious vaccine is failing to even successfully be distributed fast enough, far enough, reaching enough people to make much of a difference. So the world's on fire, and we've got to really focus one breath at a time, as we were discussing recently, on peeling away and letting go of all the cuckoo crazy nut job things that we don't need to be giving life to with our ideation and our energy and our mind focus. There's enough real things to worry about, in my humble opinion. But I shall now cleanse the palate with a bit of psytrance, a groove pad, digital music loop track. Oh no, I've played that very recently. Let's try this one. Oh, I like this one. Piano Dreams Uplifting, a glamorous EDM groove pad, digital loop track. Loop by yours truly, DJ Zed, standing over there in the corner glaring at me with his stoic robotic eyes. And thunderously, we arrive at the present moment of crazy. So many things going on. I got sidetracked. The Atlantic has got a really depressing article about how the world's going to end because of all the things going on. Yay. I have always been of the opinion that the prophesied end of the world is a misnomer. The end is always happening. Endings are always ending. Beginnings are always beginning out of that. And that is revelation. Revelation is perpetually participating in the fractal unfolding of the probability waveform function that is the sort of tunnel of reality as it manifests. Strange perspective to start from, I think. Well, I mean, it was strange to me when I first encountered it, and but the more I contemplated it, the more I came to terms, and I think we're at a weird nexus point of energies, kind of being harnessed and peeled away from each other. Thank goodness, more and more people, I think, have had their aha, like, bottom of the barrel moment. And they're like, yep, that's enough of that Q thing for me, and walking away. So much so that they're giving interviews on the news, and people are saying, yep, I just didn't know what was going on, and I watched too many videos on YouTube, and then I started to believe in this thing without really having checked in it. And all the things that they were sold, the blackout, the mass arrests, the military, whatchamahoozle, the martial law that was going to be, in support of protecting Trump. None of that's happening, but they replaced it all, as has been pointed out by some folks, with sneakier, weirder, crazier, kick the can down the road while you shuffle, while you move the goalposts even further, to mix the metaphors. Check on your conspiracy theory friends, folks, especially the Q branch, because as all of that sort of waffles into, trying to fold into the next political cycle, and whether it's Don Jr. or Ivanka, or Trump himself, if he survives unscathed, miraculously, this upcoming impeachment trial. But here we are, ready and waiting. The nation is, I hope everyone's going to tune in. I hope that the Trump base is going to watch. I hope that the Trump base is going to be reminded that the single most common thing that Trump said about Q, and I know that there's a million ways that they rationalize this as part of, his plausible deniability about the plan, which is, deeply necessary, because the plan is a sort of covert operation. But he literally denied Q. I don't know them. I don't know Q is the single most common thing he said in regards to talking about Q, answering the question, what do you know Q? What do you think about the Q thing? What do you have to say about Q? Is, I don't know. I don't know them. I don't know who they are. And once he quite charmingly said, I don't know what they think, I don't know what they believe, but I know they like me. And that's all that matters to him. It's so interesting and hilarious that he doesn't have a Twitter now. And when it comes to that issue, I think I've already talked about it, right? Like, you can't argue that corporations have rights and then get mad when they exercise their rights. Like, suck it up. You asked for this. You helped build this world that we're in. Everybody did. So if you don't like something, build a better mousetrap and talk everyone into agreeing to it. But don't just bitch and moan and say, oh, I'm being censored. He failed to give a press conference for the vast majority of his career there, his 4 long, exhausting years. And when he did give press conferences, they were shit shows. No offense to all those involved. I don't think what's-her-name deserves to be able to run for governor. She should get run out of that race for the verifiable, demonstrable falsities that she spoke from the White House podium. And that should disqualify her. Like, if you're going to peddle a narcissist, crazy, batshit crazy nonsense, and it's stuff that, like, was just verifiably, demonstrably false, and you just did it, and you, without shame and without concern for repercussions, that should ruin you in all future political races. I think it should be obvious, but who knows? One way I think that the coalition of all folks who did not support Trump in one shape, form, or another, everyone who opposed Trump should. And I know that everyone's exhausted, and there's a whole big sentiment of, I just don't want to hear about him anymore. The thing is, the ism that was built in his image will reverberate and continue. And if ignored, it may build in strength, right? And I know that that's not even like earth-shatteringly thought-provoking news. I'm not saying anything that's particularly newsworthy at this point, but I am deeply concerned, dear friends and listeners, that there's a sort of complacency that's going to befall the world because he was such an exhausting cartoon character of a person, and this final, arguably expected to be quite brief impeachment trial, which, is the Democrats' glorious sort of final maneuver here to help close this chapter in history with some, quote, accountability, in as much as that, but they've got to really get through the double hurdle of successfully convicting him and taking the second vote to bar him from ever having political office ever again. And it saddens me to see how self-defeatist the players on the left tend to be. Some of them are arguing that, preemptively, that this is nearly next to impossible to achieve. Instead of rallying the nation's passions to really bolster support for this, they've been really sort of, and Biden himself, in not wanting to sound and or repeat the sins of Trump, not wanting to sound too much like Trump, right? Not wanting to repeat the same thing that is bad, which is to politically persecute your opponents in a sort of, it's just about ruining them so they cannot win, and it isn't really about justice or whatever. So goes the argument. But in playing the card so Joe Bidenly, he's getting some flack, rightly so, of sort of not having enough bark about it. Like, he should have spoken strongly in the right tones, not sounding like he's ordering the Justice Department around, but sort of also sort of defending what needs to be defended, which is that it's crazy that a sitting president could use the bully pulpit of the presidency as amplified by his social media platform, which is, to a certain degree, his own personal fan base of celebrity stardom, more so than any kind of, real political power, But that gave him so much power that he could coordinate, instigate, inspire, participate in bringing about the events of January 6th in all the ways that he did, in as much as the facts will bear out that he definitely had a vocal hand, to mix metaphors, comically, in not only sort of inspiring the idea, but maybe even in also getting it to happen. And that everybody that participated in that, that's ridiculous. We will not survive as a species if we normalize political violence on our neighbors, on each other, on our fellow countrymen and women, regardless of which political party is, considered to be in the right, because the thing is, they are all going to argue that they are on the right side of history until they have to admit that they're not. And the problem is, we live in a post-factual political world where really great big whopping lies breed more, complacency about lying, and a culture of having been misled and lied to in more benign ways, in more sort of normal ways. Like the normal we long for wasn't all that normal, and wasn't all that transparent, and wasn't all that free of corruption, and wasn't all that great and shining and brilliant and true and righteous, and wasn't all that perfect, right? And forever we are supposed to strive towards a more perfect union. To that end, friends, we do have to sort of stick together and apply rational thought and public discourse and an enforcement of enough's enough. Lines are drawn, free speech, huzzah. But the moment you're talking about insane death threats because someone refuses to adhere to an insane conspiracy theory, that's beyond the pale. That's not patriotism. That's not righteousness. That's not anything good. That's just advocating assassination for crazy ideas that you can't quite prove. And where would we get living like that? We would get to a literal expression of some sort of guntopia, some empire of dying by the gun for whatever absurd reasons, and I know that there are people that would probably be like, yeah, that sounds cool, which is mind-blowingly painful to acknowledge. And I hate to say it, I don't want to say it that is the problem. Because I'm not talking about we got to get rid of all guns. No, that's insanity too, right? That's a problem in a whole nother direction. But we cannot live in a world where where elected officials get to play like they're in Westworld, because this isn't Westworld, right? I think that makes sense, even if you haven't seen Westworld. And if you have, you know how terribly wrong it all goes. Warning, the robots will come after you, one way or the other. Why are you building them? Especially with such neglect and with such intention to use for the most painfully, obviously wrong things to use them for. But that's a whole nother issue. We'll put a pin in that, talk about it another time. I've rambled forever today with no apparent coherent plan. But as always, friends, real, raw, and radically unscripted, this has been a special afternoon edition of Good Morning Trumptopia, brought to you by the Almost Daily Zencast. Thanks for tuning in. May peace, love, and grooviness be blossoming in your heart, because instead of fighting a war, we could be busy healing the entire species, and by extension, the whole planet. Instead of fretting about, oh, woe is us, we're going to destroy the planet, we could be doing God's good work of actually healing it all. But go on, fight, argue about all the other things you want to argue about. Coming soon to the show, a more well-organized and less rambly attempt at doing episodes more than once a day. So tune in for that. Should be fun. But for now, just because I've rambled enough for one session, here's another bit of music. Atmospheric Drum and Bass 101 Remix. Ooh, from the remix days. Hey, remix pad lab thing, you don't work anymore, and I'm sad. I'll ramble about that some other day. Here we go. I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of burned out on politics. So it is with no Trump delirious joy do I look forward to covering the impeachment coming up. I do think it was quite ridiculously hilarious that his prior formulation of whatever legal team he had going bailed on him. And of course, there's conflicting reports whether they quit or he fired them or they quit. I think they quit. But the new lawyers are, as to be expected, the kinds of lawyer that would pick this up after everyone else bails. One of which, if I'm not mistaken, is Epstein's lawyer. That should offend all of the Trump base, right? And or prove that he's complicit with the system and therefore not worthy of his adoration. Oh, wait. No politician is worthy of adoration? How many times is that got to be said? We got to say that again and again, folks. Politicians are not meant to be adored and worshipped. Politicians are meant to be public servants that are held accountable for their words and actions. And the impact of their political implementations, their political choices, their political product. But I digress. Tune in for detailed coverage of the historic, because really, truly, man, wow, is it a weird thing. There's no arguing, historical. You cannot deny it. There's no denying that this is one hell of a thing of historical proportions. A bit of a clown show, but what are you going to do? We're going to power on through. We're going to heal the people and the nation and the species thereafter. Humble suggestion. But in the meantime, I was supposed to be signing off, right? And I stayed on for a thing, and I thought I was just going to be like a blurb, but now I'm just rambling about stuff. Well, friends, as always, I appreciate your support for tuning in and would love for your voice to be heard. Let us know what you think. It's just me rambling most of the time, sometimes with a bit of flair and panache and elegance and almost well thought out sort of structure, and sometimes not. Your ears help the show grow. So thanks for tuning in, and it's much appreciated. Tell your friends and share your comments either on Sprecher.com platform or on the Facebook page for the show. Just type in the Almost Daily Zencast in Facebook and you should find it. Until next... I've said that so many times. I gotta stop repeating myself. Peace out, folks. I'm out. I'm leaving. Where's the music track? It's the song I want to play. Which one is it? Not that one. There it is.
And that is what I've got to say about that. As always, thank you kindly for listening. This has been the Almost Daily Zencast with your humble host, the incorrigible Mr. Zappa. Until next time, may peace, love, and grooviness blossom in your heart.